Okay. All right, is there anything I'm missing? Oh, wait, share screen. Share screen so you can see what I have prepared for you. And I also want to see all your faces as well. If any of you want to share your video, I love being able to see your faces. So it makes me feel like I'm talking to real people.
Business bootcamp.
So it's lovely seeing.
So she's like, this is what I did 14 years ago, and this is what I'm doing now. And
Hey. Oh shit.
This is like the fun. I think this is like the funniest part of any live, when you're waiting for everyone to come on. So like with the show of hands, like how many of you here photograph weddings? And
I had to wait in the car because I didn't order anything. So it's just you and I. Bonnie, you got your driver's license, right?
yeah, and you can do like the virtual hands too, like how Kelly, Jacqueline and Mosope, is that how you pronounce it? Mosop? But yeah, and Kelsey, yeah, you can feel free to do that too, or like physically raise your hand. How many of you photograph portraits? Give time for people to change their hands if needed. That's kind of a trick question, right? Because if you do weddings, you probably do portraits too, because don't you do portraits at weddings? but I guess, you know, some people like don't actually have a portrait business.
Oh, can you go?
All right. How many of you are, this photography is your main, like your full-time job? This is your main business and you've been in business? How many of you are like halfway right now? Like you have a business started, but you know, maybe it's not like your primary income yet, but it's on its way there. Nice. It's fun seeing the hands like changing. And then how many of you like are like just starting the business? Like either just wanting to start it or in the process of starting it, but haven't gotten it off the ground yet. All right. So the great thing about my courses, like for those of you who don't know, I used to be a high school teacher. I taught high school physics. And when you teach a subject like physics, there's people of like all levels. You have like the people who really should be in AP physics, but are not for whatever reason, like whether they didn't want to. And then you have the people who can't add literally and are put in my class because it's a required class to graduate. And so the challenge of teaching at that level is being able to accommodate all the different levels of people, right? And still make it engaging and enriching for everyone. And I think that's one of the things I do really well. And so you'll find that in my classes, it really doesn't matter what level you're at, you are going to get something at some point. And that's why there's a lot of people who will retake my courses as well, because you process it differently. To give you an idea, like, you know, what I'm sharing with you today are snippets from my full business course, which is called Like Nobody's Business. If you want to learn more about it, there's a QR code there that you can scan and learn more, but it basically gives you the entire foundation of a business, everything you need to run a smooth, efficient business. And as you take the course, what you'll find is that you receive the information differently depending on the level that you're at. Because what I do in the course is show you where the end goal is.
The long guy about some leak that we got going over there.
How do I,
So
okay, like, how do I mute everyone in one click? If everyone can mute.
Yes, please. Thank you.
There'll be room at the end for questions, but I think the best way that I found to make these live sessions work is to utilize the chat box. Yes, chat box. To utilize the chat box. So if you have any questions, drop it in the chat, and then I'll take them. I'll take the questions as when there's like a good break for things. And then I'll also pause my talk to ask for if anyone has questions as well. But then, especially while I'm talking, if we could just have everyone muted to avoid any disruptions and interruptions, because I'm pretty positive I have ADHD and I need to get that officially diagnosed, but so I will get derailed very easily. So if I hear something going on over there, I'll suddenly forget my train of thought. So, but yeah, so my point is, no matter what level you're at today, you're going to get something out of this. What I'm going to be showing you is the end goal, where you want your business.
¿Vas a ir a caminar o vas a comer? Oh.
Okay.
Hay un
I'm manually muting people because I don't know how to, like, where's the mute all button? But anyway, but yes, I'm showing you the foundation of what a strong business looks like, of what a sustainable business looks like, right? Like I've shared through my social media, like how I actually have multiple like businesses going on at the same time. They're all 6 figures and I am mostly managing it, but I'm not in it. And I wouldn't be able to do that if I didn't have strong foundational blocks set up in each of them, right? Like I also shared, I spend a lot of my free time. I work out like 2-3 times a day because I need that type of activity. Maybe that's part of the ADHD, but I need to get like, physical exertion out. So I cannot, where's that audio coming from? I find the person. If you guys can all mute. Like going through everyone muting. Okay. But I know that about myself. If I'm stuck in front of a computer for too long, I'm not happy. I get depressed. Who's talking? Okay. If you guys can all please mute. Okay. The host or co-host can mute all participants that are already in the meeting as well. Click participants located in the control panel. All right, control panel, participants. Huh. Mute all, okay, there we go. I had to open up an additional window to get to that, though. They should make it a lot easier if Zoom is listening for feedback. All right. But yeah, so like I was saying, if you want to build a business that is going to keep you happy and in business for a long time, you really have to build it based on your personal needs and things that are going to make you happy and feel fulfilled. There are certain things that will drain our energy. For example, if I'm in front of a computer for too long, that drains my energy and that makes me sad and not inspired to create, right? And I know that about myself. I need to be in nature. I need to have a lot of physical activity during the day because otherwise I get a lot of pent up energy. So knowing that, I built a business that allows me to do that. So what I'm sharing with you is how you can first identify the kind of lifestyle that you want so that you know what kind of business you need to build around it. And I'm going to give you examples today of how I've done that throughout my life as my life situation has changed. And so, and then we talk about everything from like business to marketing to getting leads to post-production. And what you'll find is that as your business grows, like you cannot work on everything all at once, right? So in my course, I give you the formula to do everything, but you got to start with one thing first. Pick one thing and do that first, right? So that's what I mean, that a lot of people will do the course again because maybe the first time they did it, marketing was a big struggle. So then they focused a lot on marketing. And then now they are so good at marketing that they are getting all like so many gigs, more than they can handle. And now the post-production is suffering. They are swamped in editing and swamped on work, like backlog of work, right? So then when they listen to my course again, it's like, oh my gosh, that's what I missed. Like when I first took the course, I didn't have a lot of clients, so I didn't care what she said about streamlining my workflow. But now I need to streamline my workflow because it's stressing me out now, right? So that's what I mean by how you can process the information differently because you care about things differently at the time. So anyway, let's get started. And I see that our room is full. So congrats to everyone who made it on the room. And that means that there's I know a bunch of people are catching it on the Facebook overflow group right now. So, okay. Today I want to focus a little bit about, why is the formatting all weird? Well, you can still read it. How to attract the right clients. The first objective with this is to really define what is the right client, because the right client for you might not be the right client for me, and vice versa, right? So acknowledging that, I think, is the first big step, is like, what is right? And then the second thing is, why do you want the right clients? Because I know sometimes, especially when you're just starting out, there's that temptation to just take on any gigs you can get, anything that pays, right? There is a balance, and there is value in taking something that pays just because it pays. But there's also value in acknowledging what your right client is and moving more towards. Ideally, we want all of our shoots to be only with the right clients, right? Clients that fulfill us and make us happy. But at the same time, sometimes that is not possible, or you're not in the situation for that yet, and that's okay. So today's objective is I'm going to give you some ideas and tips and strategies on how you can start building a life that you love. And if you noticed, I said life and not business, because your business is really just one component of your life. And there's a lot of people who will start businesses thinking that the business is going to give them freedom, only to find that now they are shackled to their business, and their business is dictating their life and controlling how much free time they have or no free time, right? So we have to be intentional about the life that we want, and to make sure that, and we make our business work for us, not the other way around, right? Like we don't want to end up becoming at the mercy of our business. We want to be able to decide for ourselves what business, like what kind of life this business needs to give me, how much money it needs to make, and how much free time it needs to give me. So to give you a little idea of how I process and how I think, back in teaching, we had something called backwards planning. And what backwards planning is, and you know this, why is this formatting all weird? Let me see if I can start this over. How do I? Okay, let me see if I represent this, if it will fix the formatting issues, because I never had this problem before. Okay, enter. No, it's still all right. That's a problem for another day, but at least you can still see it and process it. Okay. But yeah, so in teaching, what I did was we had this thing called backwards planning, which meant we started with the end goal first. We asked ourselves, what are we trying, what do we want the students to learn anyway? Right. So rather than like starting with the lesson itself, you actually ask yourself at the end of this lesson, what do I want all the kids to be able to walk away understanding? And then you work backwards from there. How do I make sure that they get there? So that's the same thing I want you to do for your business. I want you to be able to ask yourself, what do you want your life to look like? What do you want this business to give you? You know, do you see yourself traveling a lot? Do you see yourself working on weekends? Do you see yourself working on weekdays, on weeknights, right? How much free time do you see yourself having? These are the questions that you need to know for yourself. Do you see yourself commuting a lot? Or what city do you see yourself working in, right? These are all things to consider when you're building your business, because then you can build it with intentions. So to give you an idea, what we're going to be doing today is I'm going to combine 2 and 3 together. But for today, we're going to be focusing on designing your ideal life, but going backwards. So we're going to start with the end goal first. And then this is going to give you so much more clarity on what you have to make. How many of you have had hit points in your business where you didn't know what you should do? Like, oh, should I take this gig or not? Should I pay for a new website? Should I hire this person to do my Instagram? Should I hire an editor? Right. And a lot of times, like these decisions, like the more decisions you have to make, the more fatigued your brain gets. Right. So in business, we ideally want to reduce the number of decision making we have to do and shorten the time. When you have your backwards, planned, when you know what your end goal is, it's going to make your decision-making process a lot easier. You're going to know whether this takes you closer to your goal or not. And it will be a lot easier to say yes or no, because if it's not taking you closer to your goal, it's taking you further away from your goal, right? I want you to stop chasing and start attracting. When you know your end goal, you're going to be able to start manifesting it and making it happen. A lot of times, like, have any of you felt like you're just aimlessly wandering through trying to navigate the business and not knowing where to go, right? So I hope that I can at least help you, give you more clarity, and this will help you move with more intention, make decisions with more intention. And, just to give you context, this is like one part of my full program, which is called Like Nobody's Business. And enrollment is opening today, and it's by application only. So I take on a small group of photographers who are committed to growing their business and leveling up. We have weekly Zoom calls just like this, and I give you guys weekly homework. We have a private Facebook group that you're part of, and you share your homework along the way, and we basically just support each other throughout the growth. A lot of them keep in touch afterwards as well, because the growth doesn't stop at the end of the course, right? It's this time it's like 11 weeks total with 2 weeks of break, I believe. So, but we meet weekly with two breaks. And then, yeah, it's a really intimate way to get a lot of your answers to questions that you've been struggling with. And I find that like friends and family are really awful to get advice from. I don't know if any of you guys have experienced that too. Many of them don't know what you're going through. I certainly didn't have any friends and family that knows what I'm going through, and I still don't. And when I ask them for advice, it's often like not what I needed to hear or not helpful. So, and especially for my family who are not entrepreneurs, like they just can't even understand why I would leave like a salaried position with benefits to do this. So, but I'm happy to say my mom feels better about this decision now. So I'm going to give you examples of how I've had to pivot my business through the years, because you probably identify with some phase of the business right now. Right now, I want you to make a list So if you have pen and paper out or a notepad on your computer, I want you to make a list of what you value most in your life right now. What do you value most? What are most precious to you? And so some of you, you don't have to overthink it. Just the first thing that comes to mind, like what's important to you, what do you value? What are like the memories that you would want to take or leave behind or take with you? And some of you might be asking, why does this matter? We're talking about business. Why are you asking me about my life's, treasured and precious values? So when I first started my business, to give you some context, I had never traveled before. My parents worked 6 days a week and they were hourly, so they didn't have any paid vacation time off. They had no opportunities to take me anywhere. So we never traveled. I didn't know any better either. As I got older, yes, I started to get curious, and I started to have weddings that wanted to take me abroad. So I had a wedding that took me to Thailand. I had weddings that took me to Bali and, Hawaii. Even Hawaii was new for me. Like, that's how little I traveled at the time. Chicago was actually my very first destination, and I'd never been there either. And as soon as I got there, I was hit by the bug. I'm like, oh my God, I really want to travel. So I quit my teaching job so that I would have more flexibility with time. And I did a ton of destination weddings. I was traveling at least once a month. And even when I had a baby, I still refused to give that lifestyle up, and I would take him with me. So this Thailand wedding, I brought my baby with me. And I brought my parents as well to help watch the baby. It was very special because, I never got to travel with my parents before, right? But if you think of it in terms of like business, it's not very sustainable if I have to bring my parents and my kid everywhere I go, right? Sustainable in the sense of like, making money, but I suppose it could, it could become your lifestyle as well if you had like a nomadic type of lifestyle where you just roamed around. That'd be kind of cool too. But that wouldn't be feasible for me, especially once my kids started school, and I knew that. And especially when I had my second baby, it became harder because now number one doesn't travel free anymore. And there's two. And I actually had a really bad scare with number one when I took him to Bali. Like, despite Bali having these amazing resorts, my outside of the resort is very still developing. And my son at the time, who was just almost 2, like had 105 fever, like right when we landed in Bali. And we had to like drive 3 hours to the closest clinic, which looked like in a strip mall, like, and the doctor looked like a 12-year-old playing doctor. Like, it was a very scary moment, and they prescribed everything under the sun. I had to just take a picture of it and post it on Facebook and say, okay, what's legit here? And they said like basically every single antibiotic in the world was prescribed. And so, but that was also a reality check for me. Like, is it realistic for me to keep taking my kids everywhere on these destination weddings? And that was kind of a hard transition for me because I had built my business to be all destination. And it seems so glamorous doing this, right? But at that time, what I had to do is, and this is probably the best tip I'm going to give you for your own like business and mental health, is stop measuring your own success based on other people's standards or other people's benchmarks. Define those standards for yourself. And that's where I had to stop, because it's hard, when people started to expect me for all these destination weddings. And every time I saw a friend or family because they always knew I was away. It's like, where are you going next? And, where did you just come back from? And I almost felt like my success became measured by how far I traveled or how much I traveled. And that was it can take a toll on you if you don't take control of it, right? So I had to then ask myself, no, hold on, what is actually important to me? And this is what I'm having you do today, which is make a list of what's important to you and only measure your success based on that list. If you are able to achieve what you put on that list, then you are successful. It doesn't matter what next door is doing or the photographer, on Instagram is doing, because everyone has different values. So for me, there was a couple things that was true for me. And I'm curious how many of you guys would resonate with this, but I have aging parents. I want to be close to them. I want to stop being away from them. I want to have weekly dinners with them. I want them to see my kids, their grandkids, right? My kids are also growing very fast. I want to be part of their childhood. I want to be able to go to their soccer games. I want to hear their piano lessons and listen to their progress. I don't want to come back like in 3 months and realize like, whoa, you improved so much. Like, when did that happen? Right? Or, whoa, you got so much taller. Like, when did that happen? Because that happens as is. Even when you are around, you already experienced that, right? So how many of you had family on your values list? And that was something that was for me as well. Like, I need to build a business that's going to allow me to be close to my family. And this was a shoot that I loved. One other thing that I love is creativity. I needed a job. I needed my business to allow me creative freedom to be able to produce fun shoots like this. However, one thing that I find challenging with a lot of creatives is we fall into the trap thinking that everything has to be creative. Any of you feel like that? Like every shoot has to be your next greatest and biggest shoot. And if it's not, then, and I remember when I was teaching high school, the art teacher told me it's called masterpiece syndrome. I don't know if he made it up or if that's an actual term, but where we end up getting paralyzed because we feel like everything we create has to be the next masterpiece. And if it's not a masterpiece, then it's like, we like just get all hung up about it. So what I realized is that not every shoot could demand this type of production because it would just take a lot of time. And financially, like what actually makes me the most money are these simple portrait sessions. And while they seem so simple, they are so precious. Like you can just imagine how much these mean to the parents, right? Like while the kids are still this tiny. So what I knew is that I needed a business that was going to be stable. So what I love about my portrait business is that it's local. It's done in my home studio. And it makes up probably 70% of my income, like portrait sessions, that is. And I'm able to do it from the comfort of my own home. And because it's at home, I don't have to drive anywhere. So I can actually stack them back and forth, back to back, rather than driving back and forth. When I used to drive to clients' houses all the time, it was unpredictable how long it was going to take. So I couldn't schedule another shoot right after because what if traffic hit? Then I wouldn't get to the next shoot on time. And then it's just a trickle down effect from there. But when it's at my studio, it's much more predictable. The lighting is predictable. The setting is predictable. The furniture, right? And the schedule is predictable. So at that point, I'm really able to do them back to back, roll out of bed, shoot, and then come back to take a nap if I wanted. So that was kind of lifestyle I wanted because I wanted to be able to pick up my kids after school. And that was important to me to see them. So these values that I'm talking about are things that only you know the answer to. This first step, no one can tell you what your values are. And it's kind of a beautiful thing because that also means no one else can define your success, right? Only you can define your own success. So as long as you make those values clear, write it in pretty letters and stick it on the wall to remind yourself. If any of you guys journal, this is also a really good way to remind yourself too. I like to make a list of 3 things that I value. And I just check with myself, at either the beginning of the day, I ask myself, what am I going to do today to make sure that I meet these values? Or at the end of the day, how have I met these values, right? And it's a really good way to just appreciate the life that you have and the time that you have as well. And this is also going to give you a lot more clarity with your business so that you can start saying no to things. I actually find that saying no is one of the bigger challenges in running a business because there's going to be so many different opportunities that come and it's going to be tempting to take everything. But as long as you know what your values are and how it's feeding your value, then that's okay. And let me clarify, I don't mean by only taking gigs that are your ideal gigs, because there are times where we just need to pay the bills too, right? So you can take those gigs knowing that, yeah, because one of my values is housing my family or keeping a roof over my own head, right? And this is the gig that's going to do that for me. It makes you appreciate all of the gigs that you have too, because it gives you, rather than being like disgruntled or being like, I'm never, no matter how bad a shoot gets, or no matter how hard a time a client gives me, I'm never resentful or feel negative about it because I know that I accepted it for whatever reasons I chose to accept it, whether it was for the money, for the experience, right? For the creativity that shoot allowed me. So it's just a good way to, it's a mindset of staying in business for a long time and not letting those moments get to you. All right. So the second thing I wanted to share with you guys is, I don't know how many of you are aware, but there's more than one business model. I find that a lot of times we see how other people run businesses and we think we have to do the same thing. Anyone like resonate with that? Where you see somebody doing mini sessions and you feel like you have to do that too, or someone's doing a ton of Instagram reels and you feel like you have to do that too. Somebody has associate photographers and you feel like, oh my God, is that what I'm supposed to offer too? Someone's doing destinations and it's like, oh, should I be doing that too? Right. And you have sorry, Wendy, did you have a question? Because I noticed you had your hand up and then you lowered your hand. Okay. Just making sure. But yeah, so there's actually more than one business model. And one of the first steps you're going to have to take is to find which business model is right for you, that's going to give you the life that meets all those values that you just listed. So yes, there is more than one business model. The 3, and there's probably more, but the 3 that I'm going to kind of boil them down to, the first one being freelance. So as a freelance photographer, you don't necessarily have to brand yourself, but you can work, this could be like second shooter. This could be working for another photography studio. This could be working for the newspaper. This could be working for an agency, right? So they call you when there's gigs. You put yourself out there, make yourself known to other agencies or photographers, and they call you when there's gigs. This is great for someone who doesn't want to run a business. So I think one misconception a lot of photographers have is they think they have to run a business. You don't have to run a business. You could be successful if you realize that what you like to do actually does not involve any of the business side. You don't have to run the business side. You could team up with an agency or with a studio, and they do all the business stuff. You just show up and do the fun part, which is the shooting, right? So, and that works for some people. You can also be like a boutique brand. So a boutique brand is like you create and market yourself or your studio, as this high-end brand. You don't take a lot of gigs, but you charge a lot for each of those gigs. And, you know, if it's wedding, it might be like only luxury weddings. If it's portrait sessions, you know, they'll be like several $1,000s per session, and you don't take a lot of them. You have to spend a lot of energy and a lot of effort in creating a strong brand and being strategic about it and placing, you know, and even with the boutique brand, it's like, do you brand it as your name or do you brand it as some other name, right? There's a lot of things that come with that as well. You take on a lot of the responsibility. It's all on you. If bookings don't come in, right? Unlike freelance, if this agency is not getting booking, you just go to the next agency, right? Or the next studio. You could even work for several studios if there's no exclusive agreement. With a boutique brand, if your marketing is sucking, then you're going to feel it. But the upside to that is if you are doing really great at marketing, you're also going to kill it in the market, right? Like, so unlike, this is what I felt like when I compared it to teaching. No matter how hard I worked as a teacher, my salary was still capped based on how many units I had and how many years I had. There was a pay scale that was so fixed, and it didn't matter how good or how bad, like I did, there was no change in my pay. But as a business owner, the harder I worked, I actually saw results from that, right? So that's the upside. But at the same time, like, if I don't work well, I'm also not getting paid too, right? There's no guarantee, unlike a salary. So those are the pros and cons. And then the third option is high volume. And what high volume means is you typically would charge less, but you take on a lot of clients. So the most simplistic way would be like comparing it to like a JCPenney or a Picture People or whatever the mall has, right? So something like that. Obviously, it doesn't have to be at that scale where it's like so corporate like that, but you could have a studio where you take on a ton of clients. You have many photographers working for your studio and you take on a lot of clients. So in the end, the boutique and the high volume potentially could make the same money, but you know, the number of people you're serving. And there's no wrong or right way to do this. And I think that's what's important for photographers to know too. For example, like school portraits or sport photography, that's high volume, right? You sign contracts with several schools, and each school has how many hundreds of kids. And if you get, like, for example, my kids' school, they sent home, they did their school photos, and then we were sent home packages. And the most easy package for them, the way they packaged it, it was just, I ended up spending $50 on portraits that weren't even that great, but I just feel like it's so iconic. Even as a photographer, and even as much as I photograph my own kids, I still wanted that cheesy school photo, right? And it cost me $50. And I thought, wow, like $50 times, you know, how many students are at the school? Hundreds, right? Like, you're looking easily like probably 5 figures just on one day of school portraits, right? And that's like, I didn't book the highest package either. I'm sure there are parents who did the higher packages than that. So there's no wrong or right way, and there's no shame in, they're all good in their own ways. And it really comes down to which one meets your needs. The high volume studio, I think, would be great for someone who loves the business side of things, who loves marketing. Okay, that's because I was muted. Am I the host again, by the way? Sometimes when you get dropped off, it makes someone else the host. All right. Wait, let me just make sure that we are all. Yes, live recording, live to Facebook. All right. Just making sure. And you guys can hear me okay? All right. But yeah, so I was saying that freelance is perfect for someone who loves the creative process, who cares more about the creativity and the photography than business. High volume is the opposite end. This is for someone who loves the business side of things, but doesn't care as much for the photography. Like they'd be okay if someone else shot it for them. And they probably would just end up hiring people to shoot it for them, but they love the business side. They love the marketing and the sales part of it, right? This is for someone who just wants to shoot. And the boutique is a hybrid of the two. You will end up having to do both. So I bring that up because I want you to be aware of that there are multiple ways you can run your business, and either are successful and one is not better than the other. It's really what's better for you. So Hannah, do you have a question? Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry. It was just the slides are gone.
Oh, the slides are gone. That's what it is. Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
I was like, I'm missing a screen and I don't know what okay. Like I know what my screen usually looks like, and it was missing a bar, and it's the share. Now it's the share screen bar.
Technology can be hard.
I know. Love it and hate it at the same time. Okay. But yeah, so that's what I was saying. Like freelance, someone who just cares about the photography. High volume, someone who just cares about the business. And boutique is for someone who doesn't mind doing both, or you can hire someone as well. Like there's a strategy to that as well that we get into in the full course, but just to give you an overview of that. So here is your homework for tonight before tomorrow's meeting. Is I want you to think, again, I know you already listed your values, but revisit that and see if there's anything you want to add to it. Share it in the Facebook group and we can give each other feedback on that. I think oftentimes saying it out loud is, and even for myself, I find myself having to do that sometimes because we all fall into the trap of comparing. We all fall into the trap of external pressure, right? Like as people start asking you for things and sometimes, especially for me, I'm a people pleaser and I don't like to say no. I often have to revisit my values again to remind myself, like that I'm making the right decision or to make the right decision, right? Because sometimes I could easily be like, oh, like, okay, fine, I'll just do that. Or, I mean, yeah, there's so many examples, like whether it's a gig that is totally out of my wheelhouse, but, or sometimes it's travel gigs. For me personally right now, sometimes it's that. It's like, it's those destination gigs where I'm like, oh, I want to do that again, and if I don't do it, will I feel like a failure? And going back to my values and reminding myself what's important to me, and will saying yes to this help me fulfill a life of my values, or is it going to take me further away from it? And being okay with making that decision. And then I'd like you to describe your dream life, like if you could, in a sentence or two, like where are you living? What are you doing? Who do you spend time with? How do you spend your day? How much are you working? A lot of this is also going to help give me insight on the kind of business that we should build for you. Oh, still no slides? Oh, share screen. Sorry. Like a lot of these things, like I remember at the start of the Zoom, and then I've never been dropped off mid Zoom before, so I'm like, how do you get this started again? Okay, so there we go. But yeah. So actually, can I interrupt you guys for a big selfie first? Well, if you are willing to turn on your video, I would love anyone who's willing to turn on the video. And then I'm going to post this on our Instagram, but say hi. It's a video. Oh, I love seeing so many faces here. And let's see, screen two, turn on your video. Okay, screen one all has video, so yay! Little finger hearts, peace. Oh, okay. So much fun, so much fun. I love it. But yeah, so continue. What did I miss out on with the screen sharing? I'm glad you guys are pointing that out. Darn internet. Okay, so I think the other stuff was okay. I think the audio was enough. But yeah, for this one, if you want to take a screenshot of it so you remember what your homework is for tomorrow, please share in our Facebook group tonight. I want you to share your list of values that you started on already. I want you to describe your dream life. You know, tell me where you envisioning yourself living. Where do you see yourself working? Who do you see yourself spending most of your time with? How do you spend an average day? Like, you know, what any of those things that are important to you. And then if you have an idea of which business model you think would be the right one for you. And, you know, in the full course, like Nobody's Business, I do share all three models with you and how to make each one of them work. And so the other thing that I want you to understand too is it's okay to change business models as your life changes as well. So maybe, you know, you're kid-free at the moment and that boutique lifestyle is great because you have time for everything. You have time to do the marketing and the photography and, you know, the traveling. And then maybe kids come along and maybe you don't have as much time. So maybe at that time you might want to shift to becoming freelance for a couple years so that you can spend more time with your kids. Then maybe the kids become older and are in school and now you have more time again. So then you shift back to being a boutique, but then maybe you realize, you know what, I am getting physically tired of always running out to shoot. Maybe it's time that I start training other photographers and I convert this to a high volume studio and start training younger photographers to work in my studio, right? So that's an example of like how your business can ebb and flow, and it's okay. So like I've pivoted my marketing several times throughout my career and it's all because of my kids. It's just based on what my kids needed at the time. But that's the beauty of running your own business, that you have the luxury to do that, right? You have the ability and the flexibility to change your schedule as needed. Like another example I want to give you, when I started having kids, the first thing that I did was realizing that I wanted to be home with them more. And so I started doing a lot more portrait sessions. But like I said, the problem that I ran into with portrait sessions is that it had me running all over the city still, right? I was doing a lot of babies at the time. So then what I did was I thought, you know what if I gave people more of an incentive to come to me? So one of the tricks that I did to raise prices without raising prices was that I kept my pricing the same if you come to my studio, which is my house. But if you want me to come to you, it's double the price. So what that allowed was for people who were already used to working with me and that price range to still have access to me and still have a way to work with me, but to also start shifting my prices up. Like I doubled my price that way. And new people who came in or people who really could not come to me and still wanted me were willing to then pay that fee. So that allowed me to actually increase the volume that I shot in my house, but it was great because then I was able to narrow it down. So in my studio right now, I have only 2 days that I offer. So only Thursdays and Fridays. And Friday, it's only half day. So it's really 1.5 days. Thursday are my studio days right now. And the reason why is because I have my housekeeper come on Wednesdays. So then I know that the house will be clean on Thursdays because I have kids, reality, right? They do mess up the house really fast. So I do 1.5 days of in-studio shooting, but we stack them. There are weeks where we'll have like 7 shoots in a week. But it's great. It's not spread out. I can really focus. Tuesdays are my meeting days. That's why I'm meeting with you guys on a Tuesday. Wednesdays are my on location days because my housekeeper is at my house. So if anyone wants to shoot, let's say at the beach or at the mountains, then Wednesdays are the days that I'm willing to come out to you. Saturday and Sundays are reserved for weddings only. So, and then I limit the weddings to like once a month. So that way I can still be with my family and it's a nice balance. And then I still have Mondays as my office days. Mondays are my catch-up days. Tuesdays are the meeting days, right? So it's a well-balanced life. And I only work while my kids are at school. And that's why we're meeting right now because they are at school right now. So I would love to help you guys be able to create that type of schedule and build your business with intention in that way. The other thing that I started to do that I'm like so proud of, and I will share with you guys a little bit as well in the full course, mini sessions. A lot of people wanted weekend sessions, but I don't want to give up my weekends. So instead, what I do is twice a year, I offer mini sessions on one weekend only. So once in the spring and once in the fall. And this is the only time you're going to be able to get a weekend session with me at a normal price, right? Like, because otherwise you normally would have to pay wedding prices to get me to shoot you on a weekend. So at least this way, there's a ton of families who might not have been able to make their schedule work to shoot on a Thursday with me, but now they have the option of doing a weekend, and it's only one weekend, twice a year, spring and fall. And I stack it. Like we will book up to like 18 sessions in one day. And in one, there was one, like this past holiday session, we did 55 sessions in one weekend. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And there was another holiday session where I did like 72 in one weekend. So I really pack them in and I have the stamina for it. And I would much rather like have one intense weekend versus spreading it all out. But if you think about that one year when I did 72 sessions in one weekend, if I had to spread it out to 1 to 2 family a day, that would take me over a month, right, of shooting every single day to cover that many families. So I like being able to serve that many families in a short amount of time. And it's so efficient because then the editing is all the same and all at the same time. So rather than logging into Lightroom, right, like 30 different times, and even 30 doesn't, it would take, yeah, it would still take, even if I had done 70 something sessions, 2 a day, it would take over a month to have completed that. That would mean I would have to log into Lightroom every single day for over a month, right? And that's just like inefficient. So by knocking it all out on one weekend, we were able to deliver all the photos by that week. So that night, we just edited everything in a batch. Everything was in one Lightroom catalog in different, what's that? Starts with a C. I can't think of the word now. Collections, in different collections, but all one catalog. So then you can batch edit everything, export, and done. I think this is probably one of the most proudest products that I've come up with because it's so automated too. Like the automations, everyone books it. Just, they don't even have to email or call us. It's just ready to book. We made a site for it. They just reserve their time. All the time slots are available on my website. They're all 20 minutes apart. They just go in and book a time slot. And so it's, these sessions generate usually like at least 30 grand in one weekend. And that doesn't even count any of the print products and stuff that they usually add on after. So it is a very efficient way, not only for revenue wise, but efficient in terms of workflow wise. So, but yeah, so that's automation stuff like this is something that I'm excited to be helping with. We're not going to talk specifically about mini sessions. I have a separate course for that. And if you are interested in it, you can shoot me an email or a DM and I can send you the mini session specific course for that. But we do talk about automations and things like how I'm able to get my business so streamlined like this, where the booking process is smooth and doesn't take a lot of time. So yeah. And that is kind of like, for today. And so reminder, if you guys want to check out joining the 10-week course, then we will have a lot more time to go into depth in all this as well as customizing like your individual strategies. But I will take any questions. If you guys have questions, either raise your hand, your real hand or your emoji hand. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you guys have. How helpful was today? Yay. I like being helpful. But yeah, so tomorrow we'll go in a little bit more detail. Today is pretty much all about you. And this is like that work that I was saying no one else can do for you, right? Like no one else can tell you what you want and how you want to live. So once you identify that and find out what the right business is for you, then we can really start talking about the correct marketing strategies for you to use. So if anything, I just want you to take away that, like, never compare yourself to someone else. Just because you see someone else doing something else doesn't mean you have to do it too. And sometimes I feel like as a business owner, we feel that pressure that we're supposed to be doing everything. Like you're supposed to be on TikTok, you're supposed to be on Be Real. You're like every new platform that comes out, you feel like you have to do it too. And, you see someone like doing video and like, oh my God, am I supposed to add video too now in addition to this? And am I supposed to be doing, making reels? Am I supposed to be traveling, offering mini sessions? Like it's not, there's a lot of options and you don't have to do all of them. So, but yeah, if there are no questions, then I will be sending the replay to this for anyone who missed it or anyone who wants to review it again. And I look forward to catching you guys on again tomorrow. As you saw today, the room got full. And so, it is a good idea if you want to log on like 5 minutes early tomorrow, just to secure your seat. But if you aren't able to get in tomorrow, the Facebook group has the spillover, has the broadcasting over there, but I'm not monitoring the comments as actively as I'm monitoring the comments here. Like we had 59 comments in here. So thank you for your participation. And tomorrow's session is at the same time. Cal had that question. And yeah, thank you all. It was so good to see you guys, and we'll see you tomorrow. Remember to do your homework in the Facebook group. Leave your answers in the group. Kosi, always nice to see you. I love seeing like, reoccurring faces like Mary and Kate. I'll start to get to know more of your faces too. All right. Have a good one, everyone. How do I end this?